The court's ruling has now been released, and clearly, it did not go in your favor. I want to begin by asking what this now means for your family. Does this mean you won't be bringing your children back to the UK? The outcome was both unexpected and, in some ways, not surprising at all. For now, returning to the UK with my family simply isn't possible. For years, the royal spotlight has been dimmed by quiet murmurs of strain, yet nothing stuns the public more than words sharp enough to cut through palace walls. When Prince Harry delivered his latest statement, the world seemed to pause, ears alert, hearts pounding. Meghan's tear-streaked face said more than words ever could. Still, the complete truth remained concealed. Was this a confession of betrayal, of pain, or something even more explosive? Behind the gilded doors of royalty, long-buried secrets have finally risen to the surface, leaving the UK utterly speechless. The announcement that stopped the world. Reports say the room fell into a silence that felt thick and unnatural the instant Prince Harry began to speak. There was no warning, no gentle build-up, no polished royal phrasing designed to cushion the impact. Those close to the moment claim he delivered it simply, calmly, clearly, without theatrics. His marriage to Meghan Markle was coming to an end. With that single sentence, a relationship the world had watched blossom, endure, and evolve was suddenly brought to a standstill. This wasn't the typical kind of royal rumor that trickles through tabloids before fading away. There were no subtle hints, no anonymous insiders dropping breadcrumbs, no strategically leaked stories. The message was straightforward and undeniable, and because of that, it struck deeply. Across the globe, people stopped mid-scroll. Phones vibrated endlessly. Breaking news alerts lit up screens. A love story once praised as proof that tradition could be challenged was now being reframed as something far more delicate and heartbreaking. For years, Harry and Meghan symbolized hope for millions. To their supporters, they represented courage, two individuals choosing each other over rigid customs, transparency over silence, and personal well-being over royal endorsement. Their wedding had felt like a fresh breeze sweeping through a monarchy often perceived as distant and unmoving. It hinted at progress, inclusivity, and a new direction. Now, that hopeful image appeared fractured. This was not a quiet separation hidden behind palace doors. It was the public unraveling of what once seemed like a modern fairy tale. Inside Buckingham Palace, the mood reportedly shifted almost immediately. The usual air of control gave way to cautious quiet. Staff members became increasingly guarded, knowing that even the smallest slip could ignite public reaction. At the same time, media outlets worldwide sprang into motion. From London to New York, commentators analyzed every phrase, searched for subtext, and attempted to forecast what might follow. Online speculation traveled faster than verified facts. Some cited relentless pressure. Others revisited past interviews, old tensions, or the draining reality of constant public scrutiny. Beneath the noise and conjecture, however, lay a more emotional and subdued concern. Two young children caught in the center of it all. Prince Archie and Princess Lilibet suddenly found themselves part of a narrative they never chose. Questions quickly arose. Where would they be raised? How would their parents safeguard their privacy? Would they grow up navigating two very different worlds and expectations? For many observers, the children's welfare mattered more than titles or palace politics. Their future became the emotional core of the story. The announcement also reignited broader questions about the monarchy itself. In an era that increasingly questions tradition and inherited privilege, what does yet another public fracture within the royal family signify? Can an institution built upon continuity and stability remain steady when personal struggles unfold so openly? Although Harry stepped back from royal duties years ago, his bond to the crown still carries weight. Changes in his life resonate beyond his own home and ripple through public memory. Then there is legacy. The British royal family has survived wars, scandals, and painful internal divisions before. What has sustained it is its capacity to adapt. Slowly, sometimes imperfectly, but adapt nonetheless. This moment presents yet another test. Will the response be silence, carefully crafted statements, or genuine transformation? And when future generations reflect on this era, how will they remember this chapter in the enduring history of the House of Windsor? All of this stemmed from one unexpected declaration. What began as a man speaking his truth has evolved into a global conversation about love, responsibility, freedom, and tradition. Emotions collide beneath the relentless spotlight of public scrutiny, and clarity remains elusive. Is this the end of one chapter, or the beginning of something entirely new? No one can say with certainty. What is clear is that the world is watching intently, and this story is far from over. Why would Harry choose this moment to make such an announcement? Had their marriage been facing difficulties long before now? And what was their wedding truly like? Let's explore the fairy tale that was never meant to fall apart. Harry and Meghan's story did not unfold quietly. It erupted onto the global stage like a headline too powerful to ignore. When Prince Harry, long regarded as the royal family's charismatic rebel and the deeply compassionate son of Princess Diana, fell in love with Meghan Markle, it felt almost cinematic. Here was a prince shaped by loss and relentless public attention, choosing a partner from an entirely different sphere: Hollywood, activism, and a multicultural American background. To many, their romance seemed like a refreshing wind sweeping through the centuries-old corridors of the British monarchy. Their 2018 wedding at St. George's Chapel was far more than a royal ceremony. It was one of the most talked-about weddings Britain had seen in years. Held within the historic walls of St. George's Chapel, where Prince Harry and Meghan Markle exchanged vows, the event became a global spectacle. Millions tuned in as tradition and transformation stood side by side. The presence of a black preacher, the stirring gospel choir, and Meghan's composed, steady confidence all signaled something powerful: the monarchy could adapt. For many supporters, this moment went beyond romance. It symbolized representation, inclusion, and the belief that even the oldest institutions could widen their doors. Harry and Meghan appeared to represent hope, a contemporary fairy tale where love triumphed over rigid convention. Yet beneath the sparkle and celebration, fractures had already begun to form. The very qualities that drew Harry and Meghan toward one another also set them on a difficult path within royal life. Harry had long wrestled with the expectations tied to being the spare, living close to duty yet yearning for independence. Meghan, meanwhile, was accustomed to speaking freely, championing causes she believed in, and shaping her own public narrative. Entering a royal structure defined by hierarchy, silence, and unwritten rules demanded a level of compromise neither fully foresaw. It wasn't long before signs of strain surfaced. Differences emerged over royal responsibilities, staff relations, and how to manage the relentless glare of the press. Within the monarchy, political neutrality is sacred. Royals are meant to rise above activism and public debate. For Meghan, however, using her voice felt both instinctive and essential. This difference in values bred frustration on multiple fronts. What initially appeared as minor misunderstandings gradually deepened, exposing how challenging it was to merge a modern, outspoken identity with an institution grounded in restraint. The media, particularly the British tabloids, intensified these pressures. Every gesture, every outfit, every word was scrutinized, criticized, and often reshaped into controversy. Meghan became a frequent target, with coverage many viewed as harsh and, at times, unfairly aggressive. For Harry, this wasn't merely uncomfortable, it was deeply unsettling. The barrage of flashing cameras and biting headlines revived painful memories of his mother's experiences. To him, history seemed to be repeating itself, and he was determined not to let it end the same way. As a result, Harry's instinct to shield Meghan became fierce and unwavering. Together, they began to feel as though they were standing alone against an unyielding system, both the press and, at moments, elements of the royal institution itself. In the beginning, this us against the world mentality strengthened their connection. They relied on one another for resilience, drawing comfort from shared loyalty and quiet defiance. Over time, however, that same outlook carried consequences. Living constantly in defense mode is draining. When the outside world feels hostile, pressure inevitably seeps inward. What started as a love story filled with optimism gradually shifted into a narrative shaped by resistance and strain. The dream of reforming the monarchy from within collided with the reality of its boundaries. Harry and Meghan's story endures not because it is flawless, but because it is profoundly human, a tale of love and ambition, of hope and conflict, and of the heavy cost that can come with trying to transform an old institution while standing beneath its spotlight. As questions about Meghan's background circulated, many sought clarity regarding her ancestry. Does Meghan truly share lineage with any royal bloodline? To answer that, we must explore a family history marked by love, exile, and a striking twist of irony. Meghan Markle's hidden Irish roots. Behind Meghan Markle's composed smile and carefully navigated public image lies a family story far deeper and more dramatic than many realize. Much attention has focused on her modern identity, her career, her voice, and her biracial heritage as the daughter of a white father and an African-American mother. Yet quietly woven into that narrative is a significant European chapter shaped by hardship, forbidden romance, and a historical irony that feels almost fated. Today, Meghan leads a more private, though still closely observed, life in California with Prince Harry and their children, Archie and Lilibet. Although they stepped back from official royal duties, public attention has hardly faded. Cameras continue to follow, opinions continue to form, and each decision is weighed against royal expectations. But long before interviews and palace corridors, Meghan's ancestors were navigating struggles of their own, personal battles filled with risk and lasting consequences. At the center of this overlooked history stands a remarkable woman, Meghan's great-great-great-grandmother, Mary McHugh, born in 1829 to Irish Catholic parents in County Galway and later raised in Belfast. Mary grew up during a turbulent period in Ireland. British rule pressed heavily on everyday life. Poverty was widespread, religious tensions were fierce, and resentment simmered beneath the surface. For many Irish Catholics, British soldiers symbolized not security, but control and injustice. It was within this charged environment that Mary made a life-altering decision. She fell in love with Thomas Bird, a British soldier. What might seem like a simple romance today was, at the time, a scandalous and deeply controversial act. To her family and community, this relationship crossed an unforgivable boundary. Marrying a man who represented the empire they held responsible for their suffering felt like betrayal. Family accounts suggest that when Mary chose Thomas, she was entirely cut off. She lost her family's support and the sense of belonging she had always known. In 1860, Mary and Thomas married in Dublin, choosing love over acceptance and courage over security. Soon after, they left Ireland behind and began a new life in London. This move was not only a change in location, it represented a complete break from Mary's former life. She left behind her homeland, her family bonds, and everything familiar, stepping into an uncertain future defined by sacrifice. Then history delivered its most striking irony. In London, Mary secured employment within the royal household at Windsor Castle, serving none other than Queen Victoria. The contrast is remarkable. An Irish Catholic woman, disowned for marrying a British soldier, ultimately found herself working for the very crown that governed Ireland. Even more astonishing, generations later, her descendant would not merely serve royalty, but marry into it. The marriage record of Mary and Thomas carries one small but powerful detail. Thomas did not write his name. Instead, he marked the document with a simple X. He was unable to write. That modest mark speaks volumes about the harsh class divisions of that era. Thomas bore the burden of poverty and limited schooling, while Mary carried the pain of exile and rejection. Their love story was not glamorous or applauded. It was delicate, challenging, and profoundly human. Together, Mary and Thomas built a life shaped by endurance and separation, by loss and resilience. Long before Meghan stepped into palace corridors as a duchess, her ancestors had already brushed against royalty in a far quieter and humbler way. Love crossed dividing lines. Allegiance was tested, and history, in its strange symmetry, seemed to echo itself. In many respects, Meghan's story did not truly begin with a globally televised royal wedding. It began generations earlier with a young Irish woman who chose love over fear and paid dearly for it. So how, when, and where did Harry and Meghan's marriage begin to fray? What went wrong? Let's look closer at the pressures that shaped their union, from royal responsibility to global celebrity. In 2020, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle made a choice that rattled the British monarchy and drew worldwide attention. They announced they would step back as senior working royals, leaving palace life behind and relocating to North America. To many observers, the decision appeared bold and freeing. It was presented as an escape from relentless media intrusion, rigid traditions, and a system they felt no longer shielded them. At its core, the move was about reclaiming control over their privacy, their narrative, and their future. At first, it seemed like the solution to their greatest struggles. No more daily royal obligations. No more constant palace oversight. No more being confined by centuries-old expectations. Harry and Meghan could finally shape their lives on their own terms. Yet, as time passed, it became evident that although they had left the palace, they had not escaped the spotlight. If anything, it shone even brighter. Beginning again in a new country is challenging for any couple. For Harry and Meghan, that challenge was intensified by fame, security concerns, financial responsibilities, and global scrutiny. They were no longer supported by the royal framework, yet the public still expected royal-level insight into their lives. To maintain their independence, they turned to media projects, signing major deals, sharing their perspective, and telling their story. Ironically, the very platforms intended to grant them freedom bound them more tightly to public attention. High-profile ventures soon followed. Netflix documentaries, the widely viewed Oprah Winfrey interview, and Harry's deeply personal memoir, Spare. Each release seemed to promise clarity, resolution, perhaps even healing. Yet rather than closing the chapter on the past, these revelations reopened wounds time and again. Every disclosure sparked renewed debate, criticism, sympathy, and backlash. The cycle persisted. Repeatedly revisiting painful experiences can place immense strain on any relationship. Strong marriages grow through shared aspirations and forward momentum. But when a couple's public identity becomes deeply intertwined with past trauma and unresolved conflict, progress becomes more complicated. Relationship experts often caution that bonds formed primarily around shared grievances or opposition to a common adversary can be fragile. Such unity may strengthen a partnership in the short term, but without a renewed sense of purpose, it can gradually weaken. For Harry and Meghan, Much of their shared public narrative revolved around what they had left behind: the royal institution, the media, and the pressures of monarchy. While their experiences were genuine and deeply personal, continually reliving them in public anchored them emotionally to the very world they sought to move beyond. Their once celebrated love story slowly became inseparable from controversy and spectacle. Another difficulty lay in merging personal healing with public performance. Healing is typically private, quiet, and gradual. For them, it unfolded on a global stage before millions. Every interview, every release, every headline invited commentary from strangers. Such relentless exposure can exhaust even the strongest bonds, transforming private pain into public discourse. What makes their journey so compelling is not merely their fame, but what it reflects about modern life. In an era defined by social media and constant news cycles, stepping away is no longer straightforward. Visibility follows you. Freedom, it seems, carries its own cost. For Harry and Meghan, independence required constant explanation, defense, and justification of their choices. Ultimately, their story stands as a powerful reminder: love alone does not always withstand the collision of fame, trauma, and public expectation. What began as a hopeful departure gradually evolved into a cautionary tale about the limits of public storytelling, the weight of unresolved wounds, and the complex price of marrying into royalty in a world that never looks away. Now the question remains: what has Meghan Markle said following Harry's announcement? Did she push back against the announcement? Did she step forward to defend herself? Let's look closer at Meghan's quiet strategy, her measured silence, her sense of control, and the quiet power behind it. Meghan's reaction, or more precisely, her deliberate choice not to react, spoke louder than any carefully crafted statement ever could. After Prince Harry's announcement sent shockwaves through the media, many expected an immediate response from Meghan Markle. A post online, a formal press release, a strategically sourced quote. None came. Instead, what followed was silence, steady, deliberate, and impossible to overlook. In a world where every sentence can be dissected, distorted, or weaponized, silence can become a powerful form of strength. Meghan's quiet does not signal fear, confusion, or weakness. It signals control. By choosing not to respond instantly, she refuses to participate in a cycle that often punishes sincerity and rewards outrage. She avoids reacting while emotions are still raw. She allows herself space to think clearly, to breathe, to seek counsel, and to decide what, if anything, is truly worth saying. That pause carries meaning. Once words are released into the public arena, they no longer belong to the speaker. They are carved into headlines, debated endlessly, and repeated without context. By waiting, Meghan retains ownership of her narrative. She moves on her own timeline, not at the pace of breaking news alerts or social media speculation. At the center of this choice are her children, Prince Archie and Princess Lilibet. Separation is painful for any family, but this family lives under relentless public observation. Children do not choose public life, yet they often bear its heaviest consequences. By refusing to engage in public disputes or exchanges of blame, Meghan shields them from becoming symbols in what is ultimately a private matter. She draws a firm line between their childhood and the world's appetite for drama. Silence also creates something rare: privacy. It provides room to feel without performing. Behind closed doors, emotions are likely layered and complicated. Grief, relief, uncertainty, hope, all intertwined. Remaining quiet gives Meghan the opportunity to process those emotions as a human being first, not as a public figure expected to deliver flawless sound bites. From a strategic perspective, silence offers protection. It leaves critics with nothing concrete to dissect, no quote to twist, no phrase to reinterpret. The noise has nowhere to attach itself. across the Atlantic, within Buckingham Palace, the reaction has appeared measured and composed, at least outwardly. Moments like this are not unfamiliar territory for the royal family. King Charles III, shaped by his own very public and painful divorce, is believed to be offering restrained guidance. The lesson he learned through experience is clear: protect the children, move carefully, and never allow private suffering to become public spectacle. Once spoken, words cannot be reclaimed. For Prince William, the situation carries a different emotional weight. There is the sadness of a brother watching distance widen, intertwined with the responsibility of duty. He must navigate personal feelings while upholding his role as the future king. For him, this is not solely a family matter. It touches the perception and steadiness of the monarchy itself. Other senior royals are likely offering quieter forms of support. Princess Anne, known for her grounded and pragmatic approach, may be assisting behind the scenes. Queen Consort Camilla, having endured intense public scrutiny herself, understands the sharp edge of public opinion. Together, they project unity, not because everything is resolved, but because unity is how the institution protects itself. In the end, what lingers most are not the statements made, but the ones withheld. Meghan's silence, the palace's restraint, and the family's cautious movements all suggest one truth: some stories are too fragile to be shouted. By choosing composure over chaos, they remind the world that beyond titles and headlines are real people experiencing pain, protecting their children, and trying to hold their lives together. But what are they saying or doing about the children at the heart of this? Have their futures been considered amid the struggle? How will these innocent lives navigate the consequences of their parents' choices? Let's look closer. The innocent lives caught in royal crossfire. At the center of this unfolding global narrative are two young children who never chose to stand beneath history's brightest spotlight: Prince Archie and Princess Lilibet. From birth, attention surrounded them. They arrived into a world of titles, ceremony, and expectation. Yet their upbringing has taken place far from palace walls and formal royal routines. Their reality is uniquely blended: an American childhood shaped by relative freedom and privacy, intertwined with a British royal heritage rooted in tradition, duty, and public scrutiny. That dual identity alone would challenge any child. The separation of their parents adds yet another layer of complexity. Questions now extend beyond typical family arrangements. How will custody function across continents? What will co-parenting look like when one parent's life is deeply connected to centuries-old royal tradition, while the other embraces independence and modern reinvention? These are circumstances no royal handbook has clearly prepared for, making Archie and Lilibet's situation largely unprecedented. Their childhood is not unfolding quietly. Every milestone, first words, first school days, first public appearances, is observed, discussed, and sometimes debated by strangers across the globe. Their connection to the monarchy carries expectations they never asked for. Issues of security, identity, and responsibility follow them wherever they go. Even in private moments, the shadow of history lingers. With such attention comes pressure, a constant awareness that their lives, in some way, belong to public conversation. As Archie and Lilibet grow older, they will gradually realize that their family story is not confined to their home. It exists in interviews, memoirs, documentaries, and headlines, shaping a narrative long before they are ready to define it for themselves. Child development experts often emphasize that children in highly visible environments require steady emotional grounding and stability to thrive. They require honesty, steady reassurance, and guidance that helps them understand who they are apart from what the world says about them. Without that foundation, the constant roar of public opinion can quickly become too heavy to carry. In many respects, These two children symbolize more than a private family shift. They stand as living reminders of a dream that struggled to survive reality. Their parents' love story once appeared to build a bridge, linking tradition with modern values, royal protocol with personal freedom. Now, the separation introduces difficult questions about Archie and Lilibet's future connection to the royal family and the British monarchy as a whole. Will they feel a sense of belonging within that world? Or will it seem distant, complicated, perhaps even burdensome? The answers are still uncertain. What is undeniable is that the decisions made today will resonate for decades to come. How their parents navigate this transition, how they communicate, cooperate, and shield their children will deeply influence how Archie and Lilibet come to understand family, trust, and identity. One day, they will look back and piece together their story through personal memories, lived experience, and the vast public record that already exists. Doing so will demand resilience, empathy, and a firmly rooted sense of self. The broader narrative of Harry and Meghan, known worldwide as the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, extends far beyond celebrity headlines. It is a contemporary story of love intersecting with tradition, of ambition meeting expectation, and of cultural contrasts unfolding beneath relentless public scrutiny. What once felt like a fairy tale gradually evolved into a lesson about pressure, identity, and endurance in a digital era where nothing remains private for long. Ultimately, this saga is not solely about royalty or fame. It is about family, about parents striving to protect their children, about children growing up between two worlds, and about the emotional cost of living life under a global spotlight. Archie and Lilibet's future is still unfolding, yet their journey already stands as a powerful reminder. Behind every headline are real people quietly learning how to grow in the shadow of history. So what do you think? Was Harry right to divorce Meghan? And is it possible for him to repair the trust and relationships that may have been strained over the years? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe.